So I'm Chris. I'm one of the co-founders, co-owners of Gatekeeper Media. Basically, if you've ever seen anything on YouTube, 99% of it has come through me. I'm usually the last eyes on it, and I'm usually the one posting it. So I've spent many years, sleepless nights, building what you guys see now and optimizing it to really have it done within 12 hours. So from when we film to when we finish, we usually see a completed next day product within 8 to 9 hours and get it up and posted. So
I'm curious on that, on disc golf portrait and stuff like that. Like, do you just literally stay up all night?
in the early days, yeah, for sure. I mean, as the years gone, I've been getting more and more sleep. But when we first started, me and my partner Derek, we back then we were doing everything ourselves, like manually. So like we didn't have the optimization where like we have a partnership with UDisc now. So they kind of give us everything. We generate our graphics and stuff like that. But in the beginning, we were doing it by hand. So it's like 2 hours of sleep, no sleep, doing that 2 or 3 days in a row. And those were the grinding times. So like 2019, 2020 were like the grinding years for sure. And then once we got that partnership, what was taking the longest, like the graphics and stuff, then became the easiest. And now we can generate our graphics in like 30 minutes. So like that was like a really big jump in it. But it was literally just determination and grinding in the beginning. And that's how we did it.
Yeah, we've had, I've been on coverage quite a few times in the Midwest. And I feel like pretty much every time we've ever had coverage done, it's been done by like a smaller brand or, and they take like 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
So I'm always just like, I understand not everybody's Gatekeeper and Joe Mez, but I'm always just like, every time you guys is like, next day coverage, I'm just like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's next level.
Yeah, and the only way you get there is like making sure your cameras are synced properly, so like you don't have to manually do it. It's just taking all the manual labor out and just having it be optimized is like truly what made us be able to do it. Like, yeah.
So when you guys are looking for a location, like if the disc golf pro tour comes to you and they're like, you know, what do you want out of a location? Do they ever like ask you guys like, what makes it good for filming or what makes it good for? You know,
Yeah, there's a little communication there. I would say it's more like specific, like the tournaments are already set, so it's more like working with us than with their cameramen and with Joe Mez and like figuring out where we should be placed and like angles and stuff like that. So like some of that comes into play. It's like, hey, how was filming this course and stuff like that.
Do you ever share footage with them? Like, do they ever give you guys footage to help if like they didn't get a shot or you need something? Is that like a...
Yeah, so there's been a couple times where that happens. If something crazy happens with the camera, then they've given us stuff. We've been partnered with them where all of the live coverage that you see is our cameras, and we're filming that. So they're getting that feed, and then we share the cards with them so they have it after.
Nice.
So there's a really good symbiotic relationship there, and we kind of, while it's our IP and our coverage, we share it with them, and they do the same with us. So.
Do you already get a set schedule of what your tournaments are doing? You get to pick and choose?
The past couple years we've been all in, so we're doing the entire tour, yeah, and it's kind of at this point to keep with consistency. It's all or nothing, so it's more like on an A-tier schedule and finding which A-tiers are
Silver
worth
Series,
it.
all that.
Silver Series is a little different because then they want consistency. So Central Coast, I believe, did all of the Silver Series stuff. So we kind of all fell into our places over the past couple of years where when we first started, it was the Wild West. There weren't even contracts. Like we were going out there and it would, hey, you're filming that card? And it's like people showing up with their cameras where now no one can show up with a camera unless you have consent with the Pro Tour. So just in the past 6 years, literally from Wild West to now all these processes in place is, I mean, it's an testament to what they're doing and making sure we're protected because we're working hard and our IP is valuable. So you can't just have other people showing up and taking that away from us.
Do you have any big stories about like big shots that you missed or like, you know, any big accidents like that? You forgot to hit record on a ace or anything?
Luckily not on the ace. I mean, actually, so there was an A-tier we were doing and it was torrential downpouring. And it was just Derek and I. It was pretty early on, and like that was back when we were like putting our cameras like in trash bags to like be able to like make sure it stays dry. And we made them, and it was like kind of cold, and we made the mistake that we had our lens cover on. So the moment we took it off, the lens was fogged like really bad, so you couldn't see anything. And they just started. It was just a local event, so they just like started. There was no like announcements or anything. So literally, we're like rushing, and then the dude hit the basket and like chained out for the ace. So luckily, I mean, truly, like luckily, it didn't go in because we would have missed the ace. So.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You guys have any questions or anything?
Chris, how do you guys communicate during the tournament? When
So
you guys
there's-
in the field?
Yeah, so there's two communicate. The past couple of years, because we've been working with the Pro Tour and being on the live calls, it's actually a lot because we have the live call going on with the Pro Tour where they're switching everything, and then we have a walkie system. So we're sitting there just walking and then let them know on blind shots where it's coming. Yeah, so it's a lot in your head because you're literally getting both. You're like, all right, camera 4, blah, 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 and then we're trying to, because it's a dance out there as well, so you're trying to communicate and tell people where to go. So it's a lot if you're not able to kind of take all that in and making sure.
Have you ever had one of your shooters just call it quits? like I can't deal?
That's a good question.
We had a guy filming the 3 Rivers Open in Fort Wayne, Indiana a couple years ago. Pooped himself. Got hit by a disc, pooped his pants.
Oh,
Had to
yeah.
leave. Had to leave. One of our buddies just ran out there and picked up the camera and filmed catch cam.
There's a story I was looking for.
yeah, that is a story. No, all of ours is more like, hey, the road life's tough. I don't think this is for me. But a lot of people go into it and think disc golf coverage is like easy, and they just go out there and then they realize like it's manual labor. Like you're carrying 20 pounds or so, and I know Jim could attest to this. Like, especially if you don't have the right equipment, like it's heavy. Like,
Catch cam dude's running.
yeah, like you're sprinting down there. So the fact that they're there and like, wow, I didn't realize this was so much work, and I'm like sore. And it's like, yeah, you're working while you're out there. You're running.
When you go to a tournament, obviously the Pro Tour, like, you probably have footage from a lot of those just because over the years, but when you go to a tournament, do you guys have to go out and shoot the drone, fly over and like that, or does like one person do it and you share with everybody?
So both.
Okay.
Early on, everyone was doing it. So Jomez was flying their own drone, we were flying our own drone, Central was flying. But over the years, as partnerships have evolved, we now are fortunate enough to just get the Pro Tour
I've noticed
drone.
they're similar,
Yeah, so if you look at Jomez, you look at the Pro Tour, and you look at ours, it's all the same drone footage. And we all wanted to work towards that. It's like we don't need three different people flying the drone. It's like honestly a hazard at that point because we're doing it like while the people are practicing. So sometimes you're like flying over their head and stuff. So that in itself is already a danger. So to just make it as simple and as safe as possible, I think it was a good move. And it's been a couple of years that we've been doing that.
All right, I got two questions. One, what's your favorite ace that you've ever recorded on Gatekeeper? Maybe edited or recorded?
My favorite ace is probably Margaret Sassman at Women's Global 2018. And like honestly, this was really the turning point for Gatekeeper because we weren't a disc golf like company when we first started. We were a drone company and we're traditional filmmakers, and I know Jim is as well. So like we went to art school and we were thinking we were gonna be narrative filmmakers, and we started dabbling a little bit. Started filming. Long story short, we started filming disc golf events, and then only like 6 months in, it was a women's global event, and it was on Mother's Day weekend. And we filmed Margaret Sassman get an ace at Stafford Woods in Jersey, and that was like the first time we truly went viral. Mm-hmm. So I remember Simon Lizotte sharing it, and it was like, oh my God, Simon's sharing our video. The first time we ever got in communication with the PDGA, which led to a partnership with them. So they're reaching out, hey, can we share your video? And that was the first time we were on ESPN for top plays. So just all of those happening, I think that was really the turning point where Derek and I were like, I think we can do this. There's a demand for it. Like we're going viral right now. We're getting tens of thousands of views. And I just think that ace was so important in Gatekeeper because if that never happened, we might have never even done this. We might have just stopped the next tournament because we were still, is this worth it? Should we even be doing this? Because like there was no money in it in the beginning. We were just dabbling and just doing it for fun. And that was really a big one for us.
Well, the Eagle grenade where it hit the catch cam, was that you guys?
Yeah.
And how has that
Dave.
changed like safety or anything from the
So early on, probably the past couple of years, I haven't been doing it, but I was the first one to do catch cam. So like, to be honest, there was a lot of times I was really scared out there as catch cam, and like nothing was like really in place. So like Simon or Eagle or these G like throwing these big hyzers, like I would literally be hiding with knowing that they're throwing, I would strategically hide behind a tree. And it was very, very scary. But I think it was unfortunate for Dave that happened. But I think it pushed the safety side of disc golf forward. And now we all wear bump caps if you're on catch cam. So while it sucks that it happened, I think it was honestly inevitable. I mean, like you said, you had, cameraman that got hit. Like plenty of people are getting hit out there. And I just think that one was so traumatic that it really changed what the Pro Tour installed and what we're doing.
Yeah, I give my guy a helmet and he goes out just like a baseball helmet.
Yeah, we have a team out in Australia and he wears like a bike helmet, like full on. So yeah.
How many people do you guys have at like any given tournament that you're shooting?
It can be anywhere from 1 to 2 if we're just doing like single cam coverage and it's smaller. We're not doing like next day, but like with the Pro Tour stuff, we've 5 to 7. There's been times Worlds we've had upwards to 10 people. There's been a couple times we've done multiple cards of coverage, and that is a lot of stuff. And so I would say on average probably like 5 to 7. Yeah, and then we also do we have a lot of remote editors, and that's something that really changed for us the past couple years. Is I optimized our workflow, like I was saying earlier, but even making sure the footage was able to be sent over the web. So all of our Pro Tour coverage for the past 2 years, we've actually been taking the footage after 9 holes, starting the edit, and then getting it and sending it over the web to people to actually place all the graphics and stuff on there. So we have like 2 remote editors as well that would be working not on location.
Right.
So.
How many people do you guys employ then altogether?
Me and Derek with the owners, and then we have maybe 2 or 3 other ones that are more like on a salary base compared to like, we have a lot of contractors, and I would say the cameramen are more like easier to contract because you go out there and they can film, where like the editing side of thing, you kind of need to know the workflow a little better. So those people are usually the employees that we're working with. We also have Nick Hansen, who we sponsor, he's a touring player. He's kind of like the roadie in the sense of like making sure gear gets across the country and stuff like that. So very crucial to make sure you have someone to watch your gear while you're out there. Because we're all bouncing in and out. Like I'll fly in and out, Derek will fly in and out, and it's just good to know you have someone consistent that's gonna get from stop to stop.
Do you think you guys will ever just employ your own like instead of hiring out for cameramen and just sending multiple crews out across the country during Pro Tour?
Are you asking, have we done that?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's like a big part of us.
People.
Yeah, there's times where we need to split up and make things a little.
Yeah.
We might need to cut back some of what we are doing, and we're very, very upfront with that. And that's where like single cam might come into play. Instead of having that reaction cam, it's like, because you don't really actually need that if the people are there for the golf. That's the first one they'll always go. Then you have your throw and catch, and then if for whatever reason we're spread really thin, catch would go, and then you just got to worry about really just one person out there at that point. And there's been many times where we've taken gigs where we are split. This past year we were doing main states and Worlds and I think another tournament all at the same time. So we had 3 crews kind of going on all at once, which being the owner and trying to manage all that and making sure all the data is properly being captured and stuff is a lot when there's three tournaments going on at once.
Were you talking about like instead of traveling? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Oh, like remote teams?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're partnered with NADGT, with the National Amateur Tour, and a lot of those are locals that we have brought on, and basically we teach them our workflow and everything, and kind of give them like kind of the secret juice that we have, and from there kind of show them what we're doing, and they kind of run with it, and then have to give us a deliverable. So then we're completely hands off as well. And that, especially with the international stuff we're doing, because we obviously can't go to Australia for every single event. So
Right.
bringing on those remote teams in Sweden and Australia has really kind of changed our, I guess, where we're kind of heading as a company, because I think the international side of things is really where Gatekeeper is pushing. Because I think with having such a big platform now, I think showcasing the courses that are amazing across the world, but there's so much talent out there that people don't get to see. So the fact that we're able to kind of share the thing that I worked really hard to optimize, it could almost be plug and play at that point. You just got to find the right people. And that's really just grown our reach internationally, which is really cool.
How does that work? Like, it must be a contract kind of nightmare for you to have to worry about how to get out there with travel and then like housing for a month. Just so many more kind of things.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts where if it's already a company that is interested in doing disc golf coverage, they already kind of have a little bit of an idea. We just kind of show them those tips and tricks and give them like our projects, and they're ready to go. So.
Chris, like folder-wise, what does a tournament day project look like when you've got multiple guys, multiple cameras, moving around different holes? How does that look like? How do you organize it? I know it starts with the day, obviously.
Yeah, so
where do you go from there?
So it would start getting B-roll before the event, and then any supplemental content. So that's already a start of a bunch of content. And then come game day, we start recording. We usually have 4 cameras out there, sometimes 5. So we would have throw, catch, reaction, a slow-mo camera, and then maybe someone kind of getting socials and things like that. But after 9 holes, someone takes the cards from the main 3 cameras, the throw, catch, and reaction, and they immediately go back to the hotel or wherever they are and start logging that stuff. So it gets broken up into like a front 9, back 9, because once they're done, then there's a whole another 9 cards that would then start getting logged. But that's really what also has helped us be able to do next day so quickly, and be able to do commentary at night is taking those cards after 9 holes and then setting that up and logging that away, and then someone's literally editing while we're still filming, and then by the time we're done filming, they should be done editing, and then that's when it gets sent remotely to graphics and things like that. B-roll, its own folder there, and then it's just broken up into different rounds, so depending on how many rounds we have. I'm also really big into making sure stuff is backed up, and I think that's something that a lot of amateur filmmakers kind of miss, is making sure your stuff's in multiple spots. So I'm really anal with that. So I have multiple hard drives that I'm putting the coverage on. So I'll have 2 hard drives that are mirrored that we go with. And I mean, one event from the Pro Tour might be a terabyte of data that we're kind of taking. And I mean, we've definitely lost footage. Luckily, it's always been footage for things that have already kind of happened and been out, and so we don't have, it's not like the end of the world type of stuff, and I could confidently say that it's very rare that we're going to lose footage for that event, because our processes are so important in terms of making sure everything's backed up properly. Because I mean, you would know, being a teacher and everything, like in college and stuff, you just put it on your computer, and then next thing you know, you spill coffee on your computer and you just lost a year's worth of stuff you were doing. So luckily that happened to me early on in college. So over the years, I've just made it a point to make sure that doesn't happen to the business. So.
How is it working with the commentators? Do you give them, like how hands-on are you with what they say? Or do you ever have to like tell them to redo stuff or anything?
Only if it's like the intro. I would say, so I'm usually the one kind of getting the commentators ready, and I'll kind of tell them like, hey, like on hole 6, something might happen or this or that. Fish is really good at asking questions. Hey, what was this going on? I saw this, and he took an 8. So like, give me a little bit of perspective on like why that happened. The biggest thing with the commentators, at least for me, is I want to get them in and out as quickly as possible, because we're doing commentary that night. I want to make sure they go to bed, and them doing at night was preferred, because before it would be, hey, you got to be up at 7 a.m. to do commentary. You might be teeing off at 9 or 10. So it's like, my goal with the commentary is, because they're players on the next day stuff, is just making sure they're comfortable. So I'll do whatever. If they mess up somewhere, if we run into any flaws where we've done remote commentary and we lost internet, I don't make them re-record. I will make sure that we find a good spot to take off from, so that we don't have to do that. There's been many times that, unfortunately, Fish or Nathan, it's 2 a.m. because we ran into problems, and knowing that they have to go out at 9 or 10 a.m. I don't know. I don't. They usually don't really care too much, but like I always feel responsible because it's obviously it's our stuff going on. So like, again, I just really make sure that that sort of stuff doesn't happen.
Do you think that it'll ever get to a point where commentary is just done by not a player, just a sports entity? Or will it always be a player because it's synonymous with disc golf?
It's interesting. It's unique to disc golf, and especially because it's players that are still like active. It's not really retired players. I think 5 to 10 years from now, we'll probably see more of that. But again, disc golf's so unique in that sense that like people want to hear the players that are current. I've never been the biggest fan of that, only because I don't love when players have to commentate on themselves, because it's hit or miss what you get. Some players love it, some players make it a nightmare. So like to kind of eliminate that altogether, I like the idea of having someone that's aware of enough but isn't like really in it. And I think like Philo is a good example of that, and he's a tremendous commentator. So we try to use him a lot for stuff, and I think it will get there, but I don't think won't be anytime soon.
What are a couple do's and don'ts for if someone's watching this that's never filmed disc golf and they're going out for the first time, whether it's casual or for a tournament? What advice would you give to, say, person coming up and you're gonna stick a camera in their hand? Don't do this, but you need to make sure you do this.
Good question. I would say don't get in the way of the play. So like disc golf etiquette is like the most important thing that we tell our contractors when they come out. We want to be like ninjas out there. We want to make sure they don't even know we're out there. So I would say like make sure you follow the etiquette of disc golf, and like if you get stuck in a spot where you might not have the best shot, priority is to make sure you don't mess up the play. You don't want to be moving while someone's putting and stuff like that, because now you're literally interfering with the play. Now, getting hit by a disc, can't say don't get hit by a disc, but with those sort of things that could be avoided, I think it's really important. Other than that, I would say make sure you have the right equipment in place that will make it much easier for you in terms of like how you record. So early on, we used to start, and our cameras weren't synced properly, so it's just like 2 random cameras. We would make sure that we would personally sync them and then record that entire hole so that you were able to sync it only once and then cut it. Whereas in the beginning, Derek and I, we were starting and stopping after every shot. So we were literally syncing every shot. And I think that's probably the troubles that you see with the lower media companies who say they could do it, is they're starting and stopping every time, and they're like, oh wait, I have to literally sit here and sync every single shot or every single hole or something like that. And that will just add up the time, where instead of getting it out in a week, you're now looking at a month or 2. So I just think always record, make sure you're always recording, and that would be a really...
You can't add it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, that was great.
I would say same thing, but I deal with kind of a different tier of tournaments, but I'm often training camera people that have never done it to go out that day. And it looks really easy, I think, on camera, but if you've ever tried to track a disc, it's very hard for the first couple of times to practice.
Yeah, I would say even staying wide in that sense is like a lot of people think they need to like go in, and it's like, yeah, you just tell people stay wide, and like even if you lose the disc in the air, like you should know disc golf at least enough that you're doing this, so you should know the flight of the disc. You kind of anticipate, and more often than not, you catch it, even when you don't think you do.
Yeah. I deal with a lot of players that may have never been on coverage at all, so I always like to introduce myself and just make them comfortable before we tee off, and then stay out of their way. But Yeah, it's more like they're not used to the cameras around, so I like to be very, upfront before and make everyone comfortable, and then just let them have at it. And I feel like I could feel that they get comfortable by end of hole one or something.
Yeah, that's big as well. And like on more of those local things, like you're saying, like you also want to just like get their permission, because like when you're on the pro tour, I mean, they obviously know that they're getting filmed. But if you're just showing up the final day or something, and you're like, oh, by the way, we're filming, and they're like, oh, I've never been on lead card, and it starts getting in their head. So I think what Jim's saying is so important to like introduce yourself and like build that rapport early on. And if something you could probably agree is like if someone says I don't want to be filmed, then you're not going to include them in the video at that point, because you have to be respectful to what that person wants.
Yeah, and it's hard when people have a really bad round. I feel like they'll blame the cameras, or like they're like, oh, I didn't know we were gonna get filmed. I was so nervous, and it's like, it sucks. I'm sorry you felt that way.
Yeah, seriously.
But it's tough. That's when it's tough, and it's like.
Have you ever filmed around and then had someone come up to you afterwards and be like, I don't want that to be released?
Only jokingly, no.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I don't.
Jokingly every week.
But I think most of them really appreciate it. Like now I have a lot of local players ask me what tournaments I'm doing, so they can sign up, and they want to be on coverage. Obviously, they're trying to get sponsored. They're trying to get materials to get sponsored. So for them, I think they look at me as a little bit of a help. So I'm in a different position, but yeah, I think I have a good relationship with players in the area.
Now, years-wise, each of you, how long have you been covering disc golf?
So we started in 2017. So that was the first tournament we ever filmed, which was the Holtwood Open. First time we did a big event was 2018, and then 2019 was when like we started working with the Pro Tour and stuff. So I would say we're going on our 5th year now, like up with the Pro Tour, but been doing it for 7 years now, which is crazy.
Mine was 2019 Firefly Hollow Open. Central Coast had covered it the year before, and then they said they weren't. And so I went there with one camera and said I would do it for free, and that's how I got started, and just went from there. Yeah, and I think I would tell newer people, if you want to try it, go out with your camera and do it by yourself, and then next time say, hey, I did this. Can you hire me and a couple other people to do it?
Yeah, because in the beginning, and like you just said, like doing it for free is like when we first started, we were doing it for free, like pro bono, and then slowly and started getting like, hey, we'll trade you some merch for your services, and then that just kept growing. But like, you gotta love what you're doing. So like, if you're gonna do it for free, then you're obviously finding something that you love doing. So I think you need to, as a beginner, not even think about the monetary aspect, and just make sure that you love the sport and love video enough to even take your time to do it.
Did you guys think that the sport would be where it's at now? Because I don't even think we'd be at this convention if it wasn't for media and media coverage of disc golf. Nobody, it just wouldn't be as popular. People wouldn't know about the pros like we do. They wouldn't want the plastic. So, I mean, without the media coverage, I don't think we'd be here. Is this crazy? Did you see yourselves here?
I'll say it for Chris, because he's probably too humble. But yeah, I think a lot of disc golfers should be super grateful for everything that you guys do, and they'll probably never say it, but I'm inspired by what you guys. That's why I started doing it. So yeah, I think a lot of disc golfers have to thank media people for helping tell the story and get it across. And vice versa, it goes both ways. Yeah,
I was going to say, it definitely goes both ways, because like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the great players making the great shots and the fans loving that. Like on the Pro Tour level, like there's definitely a mutual respect there, because they know that we're getting what we want, and then they're getting what they want, because there's some of the lower players that are on tour, like they're reaching to get to our coverage because they know they're gonna maybe sell some more disc or get some type of bonus. So I think it's just kind of been like a perfect symbiotic relationship, and I don't think we'd be here if it wasn't for the players, and I don't think that the players would be able to sell as much plastic and have the fandom that they would have if it wasn't for social media and for coverage and media.
Yeah, and I think what's cool now is you see a lot of players who might not be on lead or chase card. A lot of times they'll have their caddy just like film shots for them so they can have content later. Mm-hmm. So yeah, everyone wants content, and they're trying to get as much as they can. So yeah, I think it's all good.
welcome, guys. Do you have any questions? I know a couple of you guys came in.
So I'm filming mostly with my phone, so you guys can see I'm just started.
Yeah, I think starting with the phone is great. We've done full coverage with phones before, so I don't think you need to go out and get any gear at the beginning to start. I think making sure you do have something to stabilize it, so some type of gimbal or something would be good. And like I said earlier, like keeping it wide is a good way to start. Like because with the phone, it's a little hard to kind of zoom in. So like.
Sometimes I will have to pause if I hit the edge of the screen. Pause and have to
Yeah, I would say because the phones shoot in such high quality, you can always kind of do it digitally. You could just like look something up on how to zoom the video in the post side of things. Almost every software you can do that, and that just kind of takes out that whole I slipped or anything like that, because with the phone it is a little tough. But yeah, just keeping it wide again. More often than not, even if you don't think so, like you're gonna see the disc once it's on a bigger screen and everything. And then once you get a little more comfortable, getting a camera that is more like a camcorder, so that it has a zoom on it and not like a photography camera, because then you're still kind of manually zooming and it's still clunky. So I would say once you feel comfortable with the phone and you start upgrading, making sure you get a camcorder similar, obviously not that big or anything, but like this one sitting here would be the next step in terms of equipment and gear. And just cut out the photography cameras altogether, because we started with a photography camera, kind of like what that camera is, and it was terrible because you're manually zooming and everything, and just we learned from experience and want to make sure people don't make the same mistakes. But you can film for your phone for as long as you want. I think the phone is great and it's very high quality.
I create a lot of content on social media, and I use my phone for literally almost everything. But I use just like I think I spent $150 and got that DJI Osmo gimbal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use the app, it has a zoom feature on the
Yeah.
side, and it's like anybody can do it. So your friend can film it.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some iPhone like lens enhancers too, like a 2x zoom and stuff. So that might even help because you can be a little further back to start, and then you won't have to do as long as a zoom. Mm-hmm. We have a guy in the area that films on his phone, and I know like hot summer days, your phone will like shut off. So like get something for shade for that. And then storage is going to be a big probably issue depending on your phone and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But media management is tough. But yeah, that's awesome. Keep doing it. It just there's a lot of variables with the phone that we don't have to deal with our cameras. But that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good starting point for sure.
Yeah.
What was that?
Oh, like cut B-roll and stuff.
Would be more attractive on social media.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
You're saying for the tournament you're filming, or just in general?
In general, I'm more like a disc seller, so I want to build a disc and I want to show people like
Cool.
each disc how you put it, how the life happens.
Yeah, yeah.
So not really tournaments.
Gotcha. Yeah, good question. I feel like nowadays there's a lot of disc options, so I think people buy the story and buy the person, so they might really like the content you're putting out, even if you don't throw it as far as some people. But I'm a big advocate for putting yourself on camera so people get to know you, they buy your product, but they're really buying you. So it's not so as important as how professional your iPhone video looks, but they really like that you're putting yourself out there in your store, and that's where they make the connection, I think. So more people, and then product, I think, is the big one for that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like it's the quality. Like the quality isn't the most important thing, especially if you're not trying to do tournament coverage, where that's a little different because you want it to be as clean as possible. But if it's more social media and marketing that side, I think Jim's perfectly right that putting yourself on camera or whoever may be a personality worth it, and getting creative with your stories and the types of things you're filming is much more important than anything technical that you could ever have, because story will drive everything. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Cool. All right.
Does anyone else have anything?
Other than the Pro Tour, I know there's like New England Team Challenge and stuff like that. Has there been like consideration in covering like smaller leagues or tournaments and stuff like that, or point series and stuff like that? During off time for the Pro Tour, or do you guys kind of use that as an off season as well?
I would say there's never really an off season. We're 24/7, 12 months we're working. It's very important for us at Gatekeeper to showcase the local talent. So we're from Pennsylvania, so we're not too far. But like we want to put cameras in people's hands to film those types of leagues and stuff like that. Or even on our busy schedule, there's always local events that may only be a B tier that it's still very important for us to go to. And because we know how well some of the players are and the courses near us, and we want to showcase that. So I just think you got to know where you come from, like you gotta support the people that you started with, because when we first started, we were filming those people and doing it for free. So I think just giving back to them and being humble about it and sharing our growth with locally the people that we have is important, because they helped us get where we are.
Yeah, good question. I mostly do local coverage, but yeah, I do the Ice Bowl every year. I try and do as much local stuff as I can. Team Challenge would be awesome. I threw the idea to do a couple of team challenges out there sometimes. I want to do as many tournaments as I can, but it's still, I do all the shooting, I do all the drone, the editing, commentary, so it has to just make sense for everyone. I want to do as much as I can, but it's still like 40 hours of work for me to do a coverage, so I want to do whatever makes sense. But yeah, I love the idea of Team Challenge and anything that anything that wants to be and needs to be, any course or anything, to try and do it all.
Mm-hmm.
Team Challenge comes with some pretty tough conditions too.
Yeah.
Like, is the rain pretty hard to deal with sometimes during those tournaments, or like, do you need
Yeah.
the wind get in the way significantly that you have to
Oh,
like,
yeah.
change the way you approach it?
Totally.
Yeah, I would say so. When we first started filming, like we were putting these expensive cameras in a trash bag, and a trash bag's good enough. I mean,
That's what I
luckily,
use,
yeah, luckily, I mean, we went years and years with just trash bags. Fortunate that none of our cameras really broke from any type of weather conditions like that. But it's important to protect that gear and always have it on you. And that's something we strive to tell our people is you always got to have your rain slick on you now, or your trash bag, because while the forecast might not show anything, I mean, some of these places we go to, Vegas is an example, for some reason, like rain will come out of nowhere, like even though it's not even on the forecast. And next thing you know, you need to start bagging up your camera to protect it. In terms of wind, you can kind of eliminate that with proper gear, like a windscreen or something like that. But I personally don't think that's as important, especially if it's coverage, because you are going to have commentary over it. So as long as you lower it enough, you can kind of get by and have someone else talking over it. It's not as important, but the weather and the rain is very important, because there's been so many horror stories from other media teams that I heard them, and mid-tournament, your camera just doesn't turn on the next day because it got a little bit of wet. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mostly shoot in like rain and wind. I feel like I'm lucky when it's not like that. So yeah, we put garbage bags or protective over it. But yeah, a lot of times we'll be shooting in the rain, but also in like 20-mile-an-hour winds. So the winds will blow, the covers all over the place. And so yeah, it's always a challenge. But sometimes I feel like that's the best coverage. Like sometimes I'll love to watch Gatekeeper like rainy rounds for some reason. There's something nice about watching a rainy round from like your home with a beer. It's a nice one.
Yeah, I think the rainy rounds they look better because like the sun is kind of shaded. It kind of creates like this character to the footage, and I love like you don't even think it's raining, and then you kind of see it with like football and like outdoor sports. You don't even think it's raining, and then as you zoom in, you see it's like torrential downpouring. So it's really cool that you get that perspective just from the camera, and the camera never does justice to the weather, to the distance of the throws or the putts. The elevation, like it never looks the same on camera than what it will look like in person. And early on, I saw that because I see all these courses on Joe Messer Central, and then once we started going to these courses, it's like, oh, that's that hole. That looks nothing like what it does on camera. So it's just really cool to kind of see it, the camera just, I don't want to say it lies, but it has its own eyes. The perspective is so different. Yeah.
Okay. What do you do? So many people have these shots out there now that they got these ace shots and a throw in and that, and then they wish I had a camera rolling on that. How can you overcome something like that spur of the moment? I mean, head cams or body cams or what's the best advice for something like that?
In the pro tour you're talking about? Or
Just in general for the recreational player.
Yeah, I always recommend people to just bring a tripod, bring a cheap tripod and just like put on your phone, especially if it's a cool tee pad and like might be an aceable shot. I mean, I record all my shots just to have them, but I think everyone should just like do it at least on cool shots. And if you have a cart, just get a little arm to hold your phone. And it's fun. You want to look back and you can make content, so you get content all the time. I recommend everyone to do that if they can.
Yeah, we have an acronym at Gatekeeper, and it's ABC, and it's always be capturing. So like always be recording, because everything's digital now. So yeah, it takes up a little bit of space, but like you're gonna be kicking yourself if you weren't recording it. So we just really instill to our members that like you better be recording. Like your job is to be recording. I'm not worried if you shoot too much. It's only an issue when you shoot too little, and I think that could really be eliminated by just making sure you're always recording. And then like what Jim's saying, if it's local or anything, just having that tripod or something, and just knowing this hole is possibly an ace hole, just film it and just again always record it. And it might not, everyone might shank it, but then there's that one time someone throws it in, and if you don't have it, it's a really bad feeling.
And if it's a bad shot, you have like content of a bad shot, but you can also see what you did wrong in form. So I feel like record them all, and then if you don't use it, just delete it right away.
Yeah.
But at least you have it. You can look back and be like, oh, this is what I did wrong. This is what I did right. So
You can always delete it.
yeah.
Yep. Sweet. Anything else, guys? I know we're getting close to the end. Sweet. Thank you for all the questions. I appreciate it, even you asking some. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, Gatekeeper Media, you can go follow us, subscribe to us. A lot of really big things this year. We're really pushing for international coverage, so just keep your eyes out for that. And yeah, that's really what we're trying to bring to the sport, is we want to see this sport in the Olympics. And I think we, as a media crew, that's us doing our job to show it to the world. So to everyone that's subscribed to us and has watched our videos, I really appreciate it, because it's been a lot of late nights and hard work, and it's nice to see it turn off. And the fact that I'm even here talking to people is just, I mean, it's a dream. It truly is.
Yeah, thanks guys. I'm Jim from Disc Golf Brah. I'll leave some cards up there if you guys know tournaments in the area that might want coverage, and even if it feels like it's out of your price range, we can find sponsors to work together. So yeah, feel free to reach us out on Instagram or social media, website or anything. But yeah, thanks for your questions. Appreciate everything.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Good job, Ben. Appreciate it.